The sharp blade gleamed in the sun like a jewel. The hilt, a vivid gold, was placed into my hands by my father. "Son," my father explained, "this longsword has been passed down for generations in our family. You are 15 years old now, and I feel that you are ready for your training. Please take good care of it." "I will," I replied with determination. My father had fought for England in the First War of Scottish Independence during 1328, 10 years ago. I wanted to follow his steps and be able to master the techniques of the longsword. "So you are giving me the longsword now? What will you use to fight now?" I asked my father curiously. "This longbow," my father replied, holding up a 6-foot bow made of yew. "It is a new weapon that can be used to fire at enemies from far distances. While I am training with this, you will use the longsword that I just gave you." Every day I would train with my father, using my longsword and practicing new techniques. Everything was routine, until one fall evening. "Son," my father had reluctantly said, "it appears that there has been more conflict recently between us and Scotland. Also, the French have allied with Scotland against us. I must leave tomorrow to fight in the war." "But how will I continue my training?" I asked. "I will train you as much as I can," my father stated, "so that you can train on your own." "Can I come and fight in the war with you?" I asked unknowingly. "Of course not," my father told me strictly. "You still have a lot to learn, and you need to take care of your mother. She is getting old, and the war will cause prices of essential goods, like wheat, to dramatically increase. You need to stay here and to help take care of her." "I understand," I said, my expression changing in disappointment. And the following day, my father left for war. I would never forget that moment. Many years had passed since my father had left. "Mother," I said worriedly, "the prices of wheat are increasing. I must go off to war. If I do not, then we will become broke. Hopefully, I will get compensated in some way." "No, it is too dangerous for you," my mother said sternly. "But there's nothing I can do here that will help our cause." "Son, I need to tell you something." My mother's voice had just changed tone. "Earlier today, a town crier had told me that your father had been killed in battle. It is just too risky for you to go." I could not believe what I had heard. Rage erupted inside me. I could tell my mother was making it seem dangerous for me to go to war, but I thought otherwise. "Then I must avenge my father's death. I shall leave tomorrow for war," I exclaimed. "Since you are so persistent, I will just tell you to do what you feel is right," my mother said finally. "But you are becoming older and must act with maturity and responsibility. Be careful and be strong." With this determination, I used some of our leftover money to buy chainmail armor and a shield. With my sword in hand, I set off to war with one goal in mind: restoring my father's honor by avenging his death. Through the years of slashing Scottish soldiers, the sharp blade of my longsword had never dulled. I was an animal in a jungle, seeking to find its prey and kill it. I would not let the Scottish gain their independence. They didn't deserve it. They had killed my father. The political situation was becoming tense. David II of Scotland had been under the custody of Edward III of England. He was subsequently released, and this caused Edward III to invade Scotland. The news had hit me hard. We needed to strive for victory. I used my longsword to deal as much damage as I could, but it would prove to be hopeless, as Edward III had announced that the Treaty of Berwick was signed, and although England was paid by the Scottish had still gained independence. I had failed to avenge my father. A few days later, I had returned home. What I found was unimaginable. My mother was lying on the ground, unconscious. "Mother," I asked nervously. The air was still. There was no reply. I took a closer look to find that she was covered with swellings all over her body. There was dry blood around her. It looked like she had died a long time ago. I couldn't believe it. She had died from the plague. Both my parents were dead. I was hopeless. There was nothing left to do. I had trained for war all my life, and the war was now over. "There's only one way I can honor my father as a failure," I whispered to myself. I walked to the spot where my father had first handed me the family longsword. I grabbed the golden hilt. It felt just as it had when my father had first given it to me. I extended my arms. My eyes met the sharp, deadly blade. I pulled my arms towards me. Eternal pain blasted throughout my body as I fell to the spot where my father had unknowingly given me the weapon of my death more than 20 years before.